Hi there, I'm Richard Runn, and thank you for your interest in this report on designing delivery routes. This report is an aspect of our 3-day material management workshop. So it's just one lesson among many, but it's a very interesting one, and I'm going to tell you why I have a special interest in this particular technique or method in just a second. But you can download this report just by clicking on the button on this page. It's a PDF file. When we first started teaching lean methods, and the early days, I think the early days for lean were probably the late 80s to early 90s. I took my first lean class in 1989, so that's kind of where my journey starts. But around that time frame, we were teaching Kanban, and certainly lean delivery systems have something to do with Kanban as well. And here was our philosophy at the time. We were saying that our target inventory at a point of use, let's say at a workstation, would be about, now this would be a rule of thumb, would be about a day's worth of inventory at the point of use and about 2 to 3 days of inventory in a Kanban supermarket and whatever's left over, maybe a week or 2 weeks in a warehouse. And that was the chain that the Kanban chain that we would recommend as a rule of thumb. So if you added up all those times, you're turning inventory about, 30, 40, 50 turns a year, which is not too shabby, especially if today you're at 5 or 3 or 8. So all of that sounded very good at the time. Now, a few years ago, we started doing some work with Toyota. And let me just say, the Lean Material Management Workshop is being hosted by Toyota Material Handling. They've been very generous in opening their doors. And of course, we learn everything we can when we're there. And we actually sat down with the Toyota folks, the material people, and reviewed the content of our course and made sure that we were aligned more or less. We're not teaching the Toyota production system directly, but we just wanted to make sure we were aligned with that in a reasonable way. So we learned a lot. And one of the things that I noticed, and one of the things that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, to be honest, was the fact that they had not one day at a point of use as we were recommending, but they were talking about just a few hours. So significantly less material at the point of use. I said, well, that's okay, but the question I asked was, aren't we increasing the risk of running out? And in fact, students that come to our class at this Toyota plant actually say the same thing. Boy, it looks like they're doing a lot of handling. And there's something unlean about that. That's the first impression, anyway, that you would have. Now, here's the thing. Here's the golden key. Here's the light bulb that took quite a few years, maybe decades to turn on. But here it is. I'll share this with you, and it's part of delivery routes. When the amount of inventory that you have at a location, like a point of use, is a multiple of your delivery cycle, the frequency of the delivery cycle, that gives you a lot of advantages. Because remember, when we're talking about materials, rule number 1 is don't run out. I think we'd agree with that, right? I'd rather have too much inventory but not run out. But the ironic fact of life is that too much inventory doesn't guarantee that you're not going to run out. In fact, oftentimes there's excess inventory and shortages at the same time in a material delivery system that's not well managed. So if your amount of inventory you have at a location is a multiple of that frequency of delivering, well, let me give you an example. If a tugger comes by once an hour, then the amount of inventory you're planning at that location should be a multiple of that 1 hour, like 4 hours of usage, for example, or 8 hours of usage at that location. And if you can design your material delivery system, that is the quantities plus your delivery routes, in that way, then what you're going to do is achieve 2 things. Number 1, you're going to be able to manage that inventory with a small quantity. You don't need to overcome this risk of running out by having more inventory. What you're doing is you're overcoming the risk of running out by having more frequent deliveries. And that's exactly what Toyota is doing. Now, this was new to me, relatively new to me, but it's not new to Lean, because you may recall one of the most well-known quotes from Taiichi Ohno, father of the Toyota production system, was this idea of a water strider. And he said, be like the water strider and move quickly and take light loads, carry light loads. So this is basically what I saw in action. Now, I'd heard that quote years before, but I hadn't made the connection. but seeing it with your own eyes is really always a great way to really understand. So let me just close by saying that this is just one example among many examples of excellence that you'll get to see at this workshop we're teaching, if you ever have a chance to do that, because it's one thing to hear about it, but it's another thing to actually see it, see it working. And for me, again, true confessions, it took me a long time for that light bulb to go on, but it did. And I really view this as one of the most important aspects of a lean material delivery system. So with that, you can click on the button on this page, download the report, enjoy, and look forward to staying in touch with you. Bye now.